The rescue. The night sky burned with fire and smoke as Commander Ryan Cole moved carefully through the ruins of Orelus Prime. The once thriving colony was now a graveyard of broken buildings and shattered lives. His heart pounded in his chest, every step a dangerous gamble. His rifle hummed softly in his grip, ready to fire if needed. The air smelled of scorched metal and fear. Ryan's helmet scanner blinked red. Enemy drones were nearby, scanning for survivors. The enemy, the Talith hunters, were ruthless. They didn't take prisoners. Ryan knew he had to move fast. His mission was to search for survivors, but so far he had only found silence and death. Then he heard it. A faint sound, almost lost in the wind. Crying. Someone was crying. Ryan froze. The sound came from a collapsed transport ship nearby. He shifted his grip on the rifle and moved toward the noise, staying low. The crying grew louder. Not one voice. Several. High-pitched, frightened. He reached the ship and peeked inside through a crack in the twisted metal. There, huddled in the shadows, were 4 alien girls. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Large, terrified eyes. Their clothes were torn, and their faces streaked with dirt and tears. They were different species, but fear united them. Ryan's heart ached. They were just kids. "It's okay," he whispered. He switched his helmet speaker to a soft, calming tone. "I won't hurt you. I'll help you." The youngest girl, with shimmering green skin, clung to the eldest. The eldest, who had pale blue skin and black markings on her forehead, stared at Ryan with suspicion. We can't come out," she said in broken English. "Why not?" Ryan asked gently. "They'll find us." As if on cue, the distant hum of enemy drones grew louder. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. He looked over his shoulder. 3 hunter drones hovered in the distance, scanning the wreckage. They were searching and closing in fast. Ryan didn't hesitate. "We need to move. Now." The eldest girl hesitated, but when the youngest whimpered, she gave a small nod. Ryan reached in and helped them crawl out, one by one. Their small hands trembled as they gripped his gloved fingers. "Stay close," Ryan said, voice firm but calm. "Follow me." He led them away from the wreckage, keeping low. The ground beneath their feet was uneven, littered with debris. The youngest tripped. Ryan scooped her up without a word and kept moving. The drones buzzed closer, scanning with sharp blue beams. One beam passed just inches from Ryan's back. He ducked behind a fallen building, heart racing. The girls huddled close to him. He could feel their fear. The drones paused, scanning the wreckage of the transport ship. Then one of them tilted, almost like a predator sniffing the air. It turned toward their hiding spot. Ryan's mind raced. He had 1 EMP grenade. It might buy them time. Slowly, he unclipped it from his belt and pressed the activation button. "Cover your ears," he whispered. The eldest girl quickly translated for the others. The grenade beeped softly. Ryan hurled it over the debris toward the drones. A flash of white light exploded across the sky, followed by a sharp crack. The drones crackled and fell from the sky like dead insects. "Move," Ryan shouted. They sprinted through the ruins, hearts pounding in unison. The girl's breath came in sharp gasps, but they didn't stop. Ryan led them toward an old storage bunker he had scouted earlier. The entrance was hidden beneath collapsed metal beams. He pushed the beams aside, revealing a dark tunnel. "In here." The girls crawled inside. Ryan followed, pulling the beams back into place. The tunnel smelled of damp metal and oil. They crouched in the dark, panting, listening. Outside, the enemy forces arrived. Heavy footsteps thudded through the rubble. A deep guttural voice echoed. "Find them. The warlord wants the girls alive. And the human dead." The girls trembled. Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle. Minutes passed like hours. The footsteps moved away. Silence returned. In the dim light of his helmet lamp, Ryan saw the eldest girl watching him. Her eyes, a deep, shimmering blue, were full of confusion and gratitude. "You saved us," she whispered. "Why?" Ryan exhaled slowly. His body ached, his mind screamed for rest, but his heart remained steady. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said. She nodded, her face thoughtful. Outside, the sky rumbled as enemy ships circled like vultures. The warlord Zarethus wouldn't stop hunting them. But Ryan Cole had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. The oath. The silence inside the hidden bunker felt suffocating. The cold, metallic walls trapped the scent of fear and desperation. Ryan Cole crouched low, his rifle aimed at the entrance. The 4 alien girls huddled together behind him, their breaths shallow and their eyes wide with terror. Outside, footsteps echoed like a predator's heartbeat. The warlord's hunters were close. Ryan's mind raced. He calculated every possible move. The Xalith hunters were elite trackers. Their senses were sharp, their technology advanced. The girls were exhausted and terrified. A direct fight would be suicide. He needed a plan, and fast. The eldest girl, with pale blue skin and dark markings on her forehead, whispered softly, They won't stop. They always find us." Ryan shifted his position slightly to look at her. Her gaze held a mix of hopelessness and guilt. She must have been around 13 or 14, but the weight of survival had aged her beyond her years. "They haven't found us yet," Ryan said, his voice steady, "and I won't let them." The youngest, the green-skinned girl with luminous eyes, whimpered softly. Ryan's chest tightened. These kids had seen too much, lost too much. He had to protect them. Outside, a low mechanical voice crackled through the air. "Sector scan complete. No life signs detected. Move to next grid." Heavy footsteps thudded away, fading into the distance. Ryan exhaled slowly. They were safe, for now. He lowered his rifle and turned to the girls. "We need to get out of here. This place won't stay safe for long." The blue-skinned girl hesitated. Where can we go?" Ryan didn't have an answer. He was one man, stranded on a war-torn planet. His emergency beacon was damaged, and human forces had retreated weeks ago. But he couldn't let them see his doubt. "There's an old mining facility in the mountains," he said. "If we get there, we can regroup and find a way off this planet." The girls exchanged nervous glances. The youngest one sniffled. Ryan knelt beside her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Silari," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name, Silari. I promise you, I'm going to get you all out of here. But I need you to be strong, okay?" She gave a shaky nod. Ryan looked at the eldest. "And you?" She hesitated. "My name is Nisha." "Nisha, you've been protecting them all this time, haven't you?" She nodded, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You've done a great job," Ryan said. "But you don't have to do it alone anymore. I'm here now. We'll protect them together." Nisha's lips pressed into a determined line. "Okay." The other 2 girls, twins with lavender skin and small horns on their temples, introduced themselves as Vera and Lyra. Ryan committed their names to memory. These weren't just survivors. They were his responsibility now. He adjusted his gear and peeked outside. The sky was still thick with smoke. Enemy patrols hovered above, their blue scanning beams sweeping across the ruins. Ryan motioned for the girls to follow. They moved through the shattered city like shadows. Ryan led the way, guiding them through narrow alleys and collapsed corridors. Every crunch of debris underfoot made their hearts jump. Twice, they had to duck into crevices as drones passed overhead. Hours later, they reached the outskirts of the city. The ground sloped upward toward the distant mountains. The air was thinner here, colder. Ryan scanned the horizon. The mining facility was still far away. He knew the Xalith would hunt them relentlessly. "We'll rest here," he said, leading them into a shallow cave. The girls collapsed against the cold stone floor. Ryan gave them his rations, dried protein bars and a small water canister. He ate nothing. His eyes stayed on the cave entrance. After a while, Nisha spoke. "Why did you save us?" Ryan rubbed his tired eyes. "Because no one else did." She lowered her gaze. "They killed everyone. Our families, our colony. We were taken from different worlds. We don't know why." Ryan clenched his jaw. He'd heard stories about the Xalith. They were slavers, warlords who targeted vulnerable worlds. But why take these girls? What made them special? "We'll figure it out," Ryan said. Nisha's voice trembled. "They'll never stop. Zarathas. He always finds us." Ryan recognized the name. Warlord Zarathas, a sadistic leader infamous for his brutality. Ryan knelt beside Nisha, his expression serious. "I promise you, Nisha, I will protect you from Zarathas, no matter what." She stared at him, uncertainty warring with hope. Then she extended her hand toward him. Her palm bore a faint, glowing pattern, a cultural mark of her people. "We have a saying," she said. "When a protector makes a promise, we mark it with an oath." Ryan didn't understand the tradition, but he respected it. He placed his hand over hers. The glow from her palm spread to his skin, warm and tingling. "We are bonded now," Nisha said softly. "We will protect each other." The twins watched with wide eyes. Silari, the youngest, reached out and touched Ryan's other hand. The glowing pattern extended to her. One by one, the girls placed their hands over his. Ryan didn't fully grasp what had just happened, but he felt the weight of the oath settle in his chest. He wasn't just protecting them. They were becoming a team. The moment was broken by the distant hum of approaching ships. Ryan's helmet scanner blinked red. Multiple life signatures inbound. He stood quickly. "They found us. Move." The girls scrambled to their feet. Ryan led them out of the cave and toward the mountains. The sky behind them lit up with searchlights. As they ran, Silari looked up at him, her eyes full of trust. "You won't leave us, right?" Ryan squeezed her hand. "Never." The sound of pursuit grew louder. Warlord Zarathas' voice echoed across the landscape, cold and merciless. "You cannot escape me, human. The girls belong to me. And soon, your life will too." Ryan's grip tightened on his rifle. The enemy was close, but Ryan had made an oath, and he intended to keep it. The Guardian's awakening. The cold mountain air bit into their skin as Ryan Cole and the 4 alien girls climbed higher into the jagged peaks of Aurelus Prime. Their breath turned to mist in the thin atmosphere, and their steps faltered with exhaustion. Behind them, the burning ruins of the colony still glowed faintly in the distance. Enemy drones circled like vultures, blue scanning beams sweeping the landscape below. Ryan led the way, his rifle slung across his chest. His senses were sharp, his mind locked in survival mode. Every shadow, every gust of wind could be a threat. The girls followed, their faces pale with fear and fatigue. They hadn't spoken much since the escape from the cave. The echo of Zarathas' voice, cold, predatory, promising death, still lingered in the air like a curse. They reached a narrow ledge overlooking a deep ravine. Ryan stopped, scanning the area with his helmet's thermal vision. No heat signatures. "Good. Rest here," he said, voice low but firm. The girls sank onto the icy ground, huddling together for warmth. Ryan crouched by a boulder, rifle at the ready. His eyes kept returning to the glowing marks on his hand. The oath bond from the night before. It still pulsed faintly with warmth, a promise etched into his very skin. Nisha, the eldest girl, watched him from where she sat. Her dark blue eyes glimmered in the dim light. The bond. It's real now. Ryan met her gaze. "What does it mean?" She hesitated. "It's an ancient promise of protection. It connects us. Through instinct, through energy. My people call it the Vasharke, the protector's oath. You feel it, don't you? Ryan flexed his fingers. The warmth of the bond felt like a distant heartbeat, syncing with his own. Yeah, I feel it. Nisha's eyes darkened. Zarethis wants it. That's why he took us. Ryan frowned. Explain. Nisha shifted uncomfortably. The Vasharke is rare. Only those with strong survival instincts can create the bond. Our ancestors used it to protect villages during the old wars. Zarethis believes if he controls us, he can control armies. Ryan cursed under his breath. Zarethis wasn't just a warlord. He was after something far more dangerous. A psychic connection that could turn the girls into living weapons. We won't let that happen, Ryan said. Nisha gave a small nod, but fear lingered in her eyes. The twins, Vera and Lyra, sat side by side, their lavender skin pale from exhaustion. Silari, the youngest, shivered as she tried to curl into a ball. Ryan dug through his gear and pulled out his emergency thermal blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders. Silari looked up at him with wide, glowing eyes. Why do you care so much? Ryan forced a tired smile. Because someone once saved me when I was little. And now it's my turn. Silari's eyes softened. She snuggled into the warmth of the blanket and drifted to sleep. The sky overhead crackled with distant thunder. Ryan knew it wasn't natural. It was the sound of enemy ships breaking through the atmosphere. They were being hunted. He tapped his wrist device, opening a secure map. The old mining facility lay just beyond the next ridge. If they could make it there, they might find weapons, shelter, maybe even a working comm unit to call for help. We move at dawn, Ryan said. The next morning, the group set off at first light, their legs stiff with fatigue. The terrain turned rougher, the slopes steeper. The girls followed without complaint, though Silari's tiny legs struggled to keep pace. Ryan carried her when she fell behind. As they neared the top of the ridge, Nisha froze. Wait. Ryan stopped instantly, raising his rifle. What? Nisha's eyes unfocused. Her hand glowed faintly as she touched the ground. Something's watching us. Ryan scanned the area, but saw nothing. Still, he trusted her instinct. The bond connected them now. He motioned for silence and crouched low. A whisper of air stirred the rocks behind them. Ryan spun and fired. The plasma blast struck something metallic. The figure shimmered into view. A Xalith scout drone, sleek and spider-like. Its glowing red eyes locked on Silari. Run, Ryan shouted. The girls bolted up the ridge as the drone fired, blue plasma searing into the rocks. Ryan laid down cover fire, but more drones materialized from the air. Adrenaline surged through Ryan's veins. He threw an EMP grenade behind him and sprinted after the girls. The grenade detonated with a sharp crack, disabling the nearest drones. The group crested the ridge. Below them lay the abandoned mining facility, a vast, rusted complex built into the mountain's side. The entrance, a massive metal door, was half buried in snow. Go, Ryan urged. They slid down the rocky slope toward the facility as enemy drones swarmed behind them. Nisha reached the door first and tried to pull it open. It didn't budge. Ryan skidded to a stop beside her. Help me. The twins pressed against the door, their small bodies straining. Silari clung to Ryan's leg, eyes wide with panic. The drones grew louder. Ryan slammed his shoulder against the door. Metal groaned but held firm. His muscles burned. The girls mirrored his determination, pushing with all their strength. The bond flared suddenly. Ryan felt their collective fear and desperation merge with his own. The markings on their hands glowed bright. The door creaked and shifted. With a final, combined effort, it slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. Inside. Now. They scrambled into the darkness. Ryan hit the emergency panel, and the door slammed shut just as plasma blasts struck the exterior. They collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. The twins held each other, shaking. Silari buried her face in Nisha's lap. Ryan forced himself upright and scanned the facility. It was cold, dusty, but intact. Old mining equipment lined the walls. Rusted generators hummed faintly in standby mode. A map display flickered on the main console. He activated it. The comms tower was offline, but the facility had defenses, automated turrets, and reinforced walls. With some work, they could turn this place into a fortress. "We're safe, for now," Ryan said. The girls didn't answer. Exhaustion had finally pulled them into sleep. Ryan sank to the floor, back against the cold metal wall. His mind swirled with questions. Why were the girls so important to Zarethis? How had they moved the door with him? He stared at the glowing marks on his hand. The bond wasn't just symbolic. It was real and powerful. The girls had connected with him on a level beyond words. A terrifying thought hit him. If Zarethis got his hands on them, he could turn their power into a devastating weapon. Ryan gripped his rifle. The warlord might have started this hunt, but Ryan Cole would finish it. The trap. The mining facility was old, but its bones were strong. Thick metal walls lined the cavernous structure, originally built to withstand deep mountain pressures and mining accidents. Now it had become a fortress, a temporary refuge from the nightmare outside. Ryan Cole moved through the dusty corridors, his rifle ready, eyes sharp. The echo of distant, rhythmic vibrations reverberated through the ground. The Xalith hunters were searching, drawing closer with every passing hour. In the dim light, the 4 alien girls slept on a pile of thermal blankets he'd salvaged from the storage rooms. Their fragile bodies looked so small against the cold steel floor, but Ryan knew better now. Fragile was a lie. These girls had survived horrors beyond imagination. There was a core of steel beneath their fear. And something else. Something different. Ryan flexed his right hand. The faint glow of the bond mark remained etched into his palm like a scar of promise. The warmth was still there, faint but present. It wasn't just an emotional connection. It was something deeper, a shared instinct. He didn't understand it fully, but he felt it. When they'd pushed that massive metal door together, Ryan had felt their combined strength as if they were extensions of his own body. He knelt beside Nisha, the eldest, and gently tapped her shoulder. She stirred, blinking sleepily. "We need to talk," he whispered. Nisha sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Did they find us?" "Not yet, but they will." He motioned toward a small utility room. "Come on." In the cramped space, Ryan activated a holographic map of the surrounding area. The mining facility sat within a labyrinth of mountain tunnels, but one path led down toward the last surviving human colony, Fort Bastion. "Zarethis is coming," Ryan said, "and we need to stop running." Nisha's eyes widened. "But we can't fight him." "We can if we're smart." Ryan pointed to the map. This facility was built with automated defenses, turrets, sonic disruptors. If we can reactivate them, we can set a trap. Nisha bit her lip. It won't stop him forever. "No, but it'll buy us time to contact Fort Bastion." Her gaze dropped to his glowing palm. "The bond will help." Ryan hesitated. "How?" She placed her hand on the table. The markings glowed faintly. "When we bonded with you, we linked our senses. We feel what you feel. We can amplify your strength, and you can amplify ours." Ryan exhaled slowly. "Can you use it to control the facility systems?" Nisha nodded uncertainly. "I think so." "Then let's get to work." Activating the trap. Hours passed in tense, focused preparation. Ryan moved from console to console, bypassing old circuits and rerouting power to the automated defenses. Nisha sat beside him, her hand on the central control pad. The holographic interface flickered, reacting to her mental focus. The twins, Vera and Lyra, followed Ryan's instructions, setting up explosive traps along the facility's outer corridors. Their coordination was uncanny. They moved with synchronized precision, mirroring each other's movements without speaking. Silari remained with Nisha, occasionally glancing at the ceiling, as if hearing distant echoes. Ryan crouched beside her. "What do you hear?" Silari's glowing green eyes fixed on him. "The hunters. They're close." Ryan's blood chilled. He activated the scanner. Multiple signatures appeared on the perimeter, dozens of them. "They're here," he whispered. "The battle begins." The first attack came swiftly. Plasma blasts struck the main entrance with deafening force. The facility shook as the thick metal doors warped under the assault. Ryan positioned the girls behind a reinforced barrier and activated the automated turrets. Outside, the turrets roared to life. Streams of plasma fire rained down on the enemy. Through the security feed, Ryan saw Xalith soldiers, tall, armored figures with segmented, insect-like exosuits, scattering under the onslaught. Their red eyes glowed as they advanced. Ryan's pulse spiked. "Stay down." The enemy deployed spider-like drones that skittered toward the door. One drone reached the threshold and detonated in a fiery blast. The shockwave cracked the entrance open just enough for the Xalith to breach. "Here they come," Ryan muttered. The girls huddled behind him. The twins grasped hands, their eyes glowing faintly. The bond pulsed between them, reaching Ryan like a wave of energy. His senses sharpened. His muscles tightened. The first Xalith warrior burst through the gap. Ryan fired. The plasma bolt slammed into its chest, sending it sprawling backward. Another leaped through immediately after. Ryan felt a surge of awareness through the bond. Nisha's instinct guiding his aim. He twisted and fired without thinking. The plasma bolt struck the enemy's exposed joint, dropping it instantly. The twins suddenly gasped in unison. They're inside," Vera shouted. Ryan turned toward the side corridor. A dozen Xalith warriors advanced through the shadows. One of them carried a massive, crackling staff. At the back of the group stood a towering figure in black armor. His helmet bore a jagged crest, and his eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence. "Zarathus." The warlord's voice echoed through the corridor. "Ah, there you are, my little stars. You thought you could hide forever." The girls shrank back instinctively. Ryan stepped in front of them, raising his rifle. "You're not taking them," he growled. Zarathus laughed softly. "Brave human, you don't know what you protect, do you? They are keys to unimaginable power, but you already feel it, don't you? The bond, the strength they give you. Imagine that power under my control." Ryan fired. The plasma bolt struck a shimmering energy shield around Zarathus. The warlord didn't even flinch. Such primitive defiance. Zarathus said. He raised his staff. A pulse of energy surged forward. Ryan dove, pulling the girls with him. The blast vaporized the wall behind them. "Nisha," Ryan shouted. "Turrets, now." Nisha touched the ground, her eyes glowing bright. The facility's remaining turrets swiveled toward Zarathus and opened fire. Plasma bolts rained down on the enemy. Zarathus extended his staff. A dome of crackling energy shielded him and his forces. Ryan's mind raced. They needed more firepower. "Nisha, can we overload the main generator?" Nisha hesitated. That would destroy the facility. "And everyone in it," Zarathus added, his voice smooth. "Is that your plan, human? To sacrifice the children?" Ryan's heart twisted. If he didn't act, the warlord would take the girls and turn them into weapons. If he overloaded the generator, they might all die. But Zarathus would die with them. "No," Ryan whispered. "We won't die today." He knelt beside Nisha, gripping her hand. The bond flared between them, strong and sharp. The twins joined, placing their hands on his arm. Silari pressed her small palm against his wrist. The warmth surged like a tidal wave. Ryan felt his thoughts merge with theirs. Their fear, their hope. He absorbed it all. "Focus on the generator," he said. "But don't destroy it. Channel the energy through the turrets." Nisha's breath caught. I don't know if we can. You can, Ryan said. Together. The girls closed their eyes. The markings on their skin blazed with light. The bond pulsed like a drumbeat in Ryan's chest. The facility groaned as the power core overloaded. Energy surged into the turrets. The plasma barrels glowed white-hot. Zarathus's eyes widened. What are you doing? Winning, Ryan said. The turrets unleashed a blinding torrent of energy. The warlord's shield shattered with a crack like breaking glass. The plasma struck him full force, tearing through his armor. His scream echoed through the cavern. His soldiers scattered in panic. The blast ended. Smoke filled the air. Zarathus lay motionless, his armor charred and broken. Ryan slumped to his knees. The girls collapsed beside him, gasping for air. The facility's lights flickered, then stabilized. We did it, Solari whispered. Ryan's relief was short-lived. The scanner on his wrist beeped urgently. Multiple enemy ships inbound. Zarathus wasn't the only threat. His forces were coming, and now they were trapped. The betrayal. The sky above the mountain facility turned crimson, painted with the glow of descending Xalith warships. The ground trembled beneath Ryan Cole's knees, sending cracks through the snow-covered stone. The girls huddled beside him, their glowing bond marks flickering like faint embers after the fierce psychic battle. Ryan's mind raced. Zarathus lay broken in the corridor behind them, his charred armor still smoking from the energy blast. But the warlord's death had triggered something far worse, a full-scale assault. Ryan, Nisha gasped, clutching her chest. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. They're coming. He gripped her shoulders. Stay with me, Nisha. What do you feel? They're angry, she whispered. And someone is guiding them. Someone close. The twins clutched each other's hands, while Solari buried her face against Ryan's arm. The bond vibrated with fear. Ryan activated his wrist scanner. Dozens of enemy ships circled above like vultures. And then his heart dropped. A single human signature was moving toward the facility from the east. Impossible, he muttered. There were no other human survivors on Aurelus Prime. His helmet's communicator crackled. A familiar voice came through. Ryan. Commander Cole, is that you? Ryan froze. Who is this? It's Captain Harris. The voice said, breathless. From Fort Bastion. We intercepted your distress signal. I've got a squad with me. Open the west gate. Ryan's eyes narrowed. His distress beacon was damaged. He hadn't sent a signal. The girls stared at him, sensing his doubt through the bond. Nisha whispered, he's lying. Ryan's jaw tightened. He keyed the comm again. What's the passcode for emergency extraction? Static crackled. Cole, come on. We don't have time for protocol. Ryan's blood turned to ice. Captain Harris was real, but he'd died 6 months ago during a Xalith raid. Ryan switched to the external camera feed. The image appeared on his wrist screen. A squad of human soldiers stood outside the west gate, dressed in Fort Bastion uniforms. But their movements were off, too stiff. Their eyes glowed faintly red. Xalith puppets, controlled through neural implants. Ryan cursed under his breath. The Xalith had learned. They knew humans trusted their own, and they were using that trust against him. We have to move, he said, standing. Now. The descent into darkness. Ryan guided the girls deeper into the mining facility, toward the central elevator shaft. The old mine tunnels stretched beneath the mountains for miles. If they could reach the lower levels, they might find a way to escape. The lights flickered as they ran. The facility groaned under the strain of the enemy assault. Plasma blasts echoed through the corridors. Solari tugged on Ryan's sleeve. I feel someone watching us. Ryan's grip on his rifle tightened. Where? She pointed toward the upper catwalk. Ryan turned and aimed. His helmet scanner locked onto a figure standing in the shadows above. A human man, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in battered armor with a Fort Bastion insignia. His face was scared, and his eyes glowed faintly red. He smiled as if amused by their desperation. Ryan's heart stopped. "Colonel Decker." The man tilted his head. "You always were sharp, Cole." His voice echoed unnaturally. "That's why I chose you." Decker had been Ryan's commanding officer once. A mentor. A friend. He'd been reported KIA during the Salif occupation. Now he stood there as a puppet of Zarathus's forces. "Decker, fight it," Ryan shouted. "This isn't you." The colonel's expression twitched. "It is me," he said. "The Salif showed me the truth. Humanity clings to weakness, compassion, mercy. But we could be more. With their technology, we can dominate the galaxy." "You betrayed us," Ryan said, his voice low and furious. "No," Decker said, stepping forward. "I evolved. And now, thanks to these girls, we'll reshape the universe." His eyes locked on Nisha. "Surrender, and I promise we'll make it painless." Nisha stepped closer to Ryan, her small hands glowing faintly. "We'll never help you." Decker's smile twisted. "Pity." He raised his arm. A sleek wrist device blinked red. Ryan's instincts screamed. Bomb. He grabbed the girls and dove into a side corridor, just as the catwalk exploded. Shrapnel tore through the air. The blast deafened them. Ryan's vision blurred as he hit the ground hard, shielding Solari with his body. Smoke filled the tunnel. The girls coughed, their eyes wide with panic. Footsteps approached through the haze. Ryan pushed himself up, aiming his rifle. He fired 3 shots. Plasma blasts crackled through the smoke. A cold laugh echoed. Decker emerged, untouched, shield shimmering around him. Behind him, Salif hunters advanced, weapons glowing. "We need to go," Ryan said. He yanked open a maintenance hatch and ushered the girls inside. Decker fired. The blast struck the wall just as Ryan slammed the hatch shut. The metal hissed with heat. Into the depths, they slid down a steep maintenance shaft, landing on a grated floor several levels below. The air was colder here, laced with metallic dust. Massive mining drills loomed in the shadows. Ryan scanned the area. The emergency evacuation tunnel was nearby. If they could reach it, they might escape into the canyon beyond. But Solari clutched his arm. Her eyes glowed brighter than before. "He's waiting for us." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Who?" "Decker." "How can you know that?" Nisha placed a hand on Solari's shoulder. "The bond is stronger now. We can feel their intent. Solari is more sensitive to it." Ryan knelt beside the youngest girl. "What do you feel?" Solari trembled. "He's angry and scared. But he knows we'll go to the tunnel. He set a trap." Ryan's fists clenched. The tunnel was their only escape route. Decker had anticipated that. "Then we changed the game," Ryan said. "The counterattack." Ryan led the girls to the central mining drill, a colossal machine designed to bore through solid rock. The control panel was ancient but functional. "Nisha, can you interface with it?" "I can try." She placed her hands on the controls. The glowing marks on her arms pulsed. The machine rumbled to life. Ryan turned to the twins. "You two remember where we placed the charges upstairs?" The twins nodded in unison. "We're going to do the same here. I'll set explosives along the tunnel walls. When Decker and his team follow us, we'll detonate it behind them." Solari tugged his sleeve. "And then what?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then we fight." The showdown. Minutes later, they sprinted toward the evacuation tunnel entrance. The mining drill roared behind them, boring a massive hole through the rock face. The ground trembled with its power. The tunnel ahead was clear, but Ryan knew it was a lie. He spotted the faint shimmer of hidden plasma mines along the walls. "Nisha, overload the mines," he ordered. She touched the ground. The bond flared. The mines sparked and detonated prematurely, collapsing part of the ceiling. From the smoke, Decker emerged, flanked by Salif hunters. His face was twisted in fury. "Enough games, Cole," he roared. He raised his plasma rifle and fired. Ryan ducked, returning fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the tunnel. The girls crouched behind him. The twins extended their hands toward Ryan, their marks glowing. Energy surged through his limbs, speed, clarity, strength. He moved like lightning, firing with deadly precision. The Xalith hunters fell one by one, but Decker kept coming. "You can't stop me," Decker shouted. He lunged forward, grabbing Nisha by the wrist. Ryan's heart froze. Nisha screamed as Decker's implant glowed brighter, attempting to sever the bond. Silari shrieked. The air around her shimmered. The glowing marks on her skin blazed like green fire. The ground trembled as the bond energy lashed outward. Decker staggered back, clutching his head. What is this?" Ryan didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired 3 shots directly into Decker's chest. The colonel's shield shattered. Plasma scorched through his armor. Decker fell to his knees. Blood trickled from his mouth. His red glowing eyes dimmed. He looked at Ryan with something like regret. You were always stronger," he rasped. Ryan stepped closer, gun steady. "And you were always a coward." He pulled the trigger. Decker's body crumpled to the ground. The reckoning. The cavern shook as the monstrous figure of Warlord Zerithus rose from the cracked earth. His black armor glistened under the dim emergency lights, pulsating with crimson veins of energy. His eyes glowed like twin suns of malevolence, locking onto Ryan Cole and the 4 alien girls. The ground beneath his feet cracked with each step, dark tendrils of energy slithering along the stone. Ryan's heart raced. He had seen Zerathus fall. He had watched the warlord's body collapse after the turret's energy blast. But here he stood, larger, stronger, more terrifying than before. The Xalith warlord had been reborn. Silari whimpered and clung to Ryan's arm. Through the bond, he felt the collective fear of the girls, a suffocating, cold dread. Zerethus wasn't just powerful. His presence reached into their minds like a clawed hand, trying to rip apart their unity. Ryan stepped forward, shielding the girls. He gripped his plasma rifle tighter and glared at the warlord. "You should have stayed dead." Zerethus tilted his head. The motion was slow, predatory. "You don't understand, human. I never die. My essence is woven into the minds I conquer. When you killed my puppet," his lips curled into a sneer, "you merely freed me from weak flesh." Ryan's pulse spiked. Zerethus had used Colonel Decker's mind as a host. If he could do that again, no one was safe. Nisha grabbed Ryan's arm. "We can't fight him. Not like this." Ryan didn't answer. He already knew that. Zerethus wasn't just a physical enemy anymore. He was a predator of minds. The bond they shared was a beacon, and the warlord was following it straight to them. The escape. The mining drill at the end of the tunnel roared as it broke through the last layers of rock. A shaft of pale light pierced the darkness from the canyon beyond. Their escape route. Ryan switched his rifle to full charge and fired at Zerethus. Plasma blasts hit the warlord's chest. The energy crackled against his armor, but left no mark. Zerethus didn't even flinch. "Go," Ryan shouted. "Get to the drill." The girls ran toward the opening. Ryan followed, firing shot after shot to slow Zerethus' advance. The warlord raised his hand. A bolt of dark energy arced through the air and struck Ryan's rifle, ripping it from his grip and hurling him into the wall. Pain exploded through his ribs. "Ryan!" Celery screamed. Ryan staggered to his feet. Zerethus was already advancing toward the girls. Ryan lunged at a nearby control panel and smashed his fist onto the emergency override. Sparks showered the floor as the mining drill surged into reverse, tearing through the rock between Zerethus and the girls. The colossal machine groaned as its blades rotated backward, sending chunks of stone cascading into the tunnel. "Run!" Ryan yelled. The girls dashed through the narrow gap before the drill's protective shield slammed shut behind them. Ryan sprinted after them, leaping through just as the blades began to spin. The drill sealed the path behind them with tons of shattered rock. The cavern trembled as Zarathus's roar echoed through the blocked tunnel. The Canyon of Ghosts. The group emerged into a vast canyon bathed in pale blue moonlight. Towering cliffs loomed on either side, their surfaces slick with frost. The air was thin and frigid, biting their skin with each breath. Ryan scanned the area. The canyon stretched for miles in both directions. The only way out was across a narrow metal bridge spanning a deep chasm. "We cross," he said. The girls didn't argue. Their small bodies shivered from cold and fear, but they followed him without complaint. Ryan led the way, rifle gone, relying on his sidearm and instincts. As they reached the middle of the bridge, the air grew heavy. The bond mark on Ryan's hand burned. "Wait," Nisha gasped. He's here." The shadows on the far end of the bridge twisted and coiled. Zarathus emerged from the darkness, his form shifting like smoke solidifying into steel. The drill hadn't stopped him. Ryan pushed the girls behind him. The bridge swayed under the weight of the warlord's presence. "You are mine," Zarathus said, voice resonating through the canyon. "You cannot break the bond." Ryan's mind swam with his words. The bond. Zarathus wasn't chasing them. He was tracking the connection they shared. It was like a beacon guiding him straight to them. Nisha's eyes widened with realization. He's right. The bond. It's like a door. He's using it. Ryan's jaw tightened. The bond was their strength, but it had also become a liability. "We have to cut it," Nisha whispered. Silari clung to her sister's hand. "But if we do, we'll be alone." Ryan knelt and gripped Silari's shoulders. "You won't be alone. You'll have each other. Always." Tears filled her eyes. "What about you?" Ryan swallowed hard. "I'll be right behind you." He wasn't sure if that was true. Nisha's hands trembled as she placed her palms over Ryan's. The twins followed. Silari hesitated but then joined them. The markings on their skin glowed bright, merging into a single pulse of energy. Ryan felt the warmth surge through him. Years of fear, hope, survival. The girl's trust poured into him. "Focus," he said. "Break the link." The light intensified, turning white-hot. Ryan felt the bond stretch like a taut wire. Zarathus howled in fury, sensing what they were doing. The warlord raised his hands. Black tendrils of energy shot across the bridge, aiming for the girls. Ryan released the bond and lunged into the tendrils' path. Pain unlike anything he had ever known exploded through his mind. The connection shattered with a deafening crack. Ryan fell to his knees, gasping. The girls collapsed, unconscious but alive. The glowing marks on their skin faded. The bond was gone. Zarathus staggered, disoriented. "No," he roared. Ryan drew his sidearm and fired his last 3 plasma rounds at the warlord's chest. The first 2 dissipated harmlessly. The third hit the crack in Zarathus's armor, created during their last battle. The plasma bolt seared into the warlord's chest. Zarathus bellowed and fell backward. His massive form teetered at the edge of the bridge. Ryan surged forward and slammed into him with his full weight. The bridge shook as the warlord toppled into the abyss. His scream echoed through the canyon as he vanished into the darkness below. Ryan collapsed, chest heaving. His vision blurred. The girls stirred, groaning softly. We did it," Nisha whispered. Ryan forced a smile. "Yeah, we did." But deep inside, he felt something cold and empty where the bond once was.